what's going on, everybody? This is Snowman. Welcome to another brand new snoCast, the second best thing to listen to, right behind a sexy sax man playing Careless Whisper. That is a really interesting new intro. That was submitted by SwankyBox. I don't know who that guy is, but anyway, we got a great cast here today. Oh, I'm joined by somebody else who's here as well. His name is SwankyBox. Wait a minute. Hey, how's it going, SwankyBox? How you doing?
Pretty good, and actually, that video. I am a huge fan of it. Sergio, I believe, is the guy who actually did the first Sexy Sax Man play. Since then, when I go to conventions, I see people cosplaying Sexy Sax Man, playing Careless Whisper, release the first chord to it over and over and over again. It's truly phenomenal. But I'm doing very well. Doing very well. Thank you.
Welcome, and thank you personally for the intro there. I'm excited to have you on and talk to you about you. Before we dive in, like always, I'll give you the floor here. Tell us about who you are, what you do, and on the YouTube space so we can check you out.
So I run a YouTube channel called SwankyBox, and what SwankyBox is, it's basically game analysis, nostalgia, and motivation. So we're kind of where all those three things meet. On the analysis front, I do a lot of game theories, analyzing also gameplay elements or specific like storytelling in games and stuff like that. On the nostalgia front, I have a lot of stuff pertaining to my childhood. A lot of the games I play, some of my favorite levels. I have a series called Pixel Portals, which talks about levels in games and why these areas were important to me. Because I couldn't travel as a kid, but I was very adventurous. So these places and games sort of fueled my sense of travel until I got older and could actually travel to these places. And the last aspect is motivation, and sort of empowering the content creators of tomorrow, the people that are starting today, to consider pursuing their creative passions, and to not give up doing so.
That's awesome, and that's like a thing that you really don't see very much of, and so I'm glad that you do that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I feel like a lot of people, they have these role models. They look up to people. They see these channels that they like, and they never think that they can do it, or they have second thoughts about doing it. But like, I definitely want to be a voice for people to say like, hey, all the stuff you're feeling right now, I went through that same thing. I went through those struggles, and just kind of let them know like, hey, these are things everyone goes through, but that you shouldn't give up or not start because of that.
Yeah, man. A little bit of motivational speaker in there too. That's good stuff. Mm-hmm. I definitely feel you about like Pixel Portals and stuff though, because so I was an only child growing up, and so I was much the same way, where you just kind of get lost in game worlds, and I would always just like play by myself in my backyard and imagine myself in different places, and video games is a good like thing for that. So it's
exactly
good stuff. I feel you on that a lot. We've known each other for a little while now. I wanted to mention, because it's just cool, SwankyBox is actually the first YouTuber I ever met in person. We had lunch like 4 months ago, something like that. I don't know. You came up to Seattle.
Yeah, actually, I did not know that. I thought you had met other people besides me. Because like on the flip side, you are one of the first people I knew in the YouTube space. When I first joined, it was that Skype group that
right, yeah. We were in a group. That's the first thing I remember.
That was like early 2015. I had just started, so it was really kind of cool. And then fast forward a year and a half to actually meet you in person. When I was in your area.
Yeah, that was super fun. So that was, you had that honor, dude. You're my first real life YouTube interaction. And then I went to PRGE and met like a gajillion other people. So.
Oh yeah, I definitely want to go to that convention. I wasn't able to though, but next year, definitely want to.
Definitely. We'll have to meet up again. Other fun fact, and I hope you're okay that I'm sharing this, we're both named Brad, which is just also really cool. So it's like, there you go. This is the BradCast today. So
this is totally the BradCast. When I was younger, people always called me B-Rad from Malibu's Most Wanted.
Okay. So my last name is Grow, and so everyone called me B-Rad G, because that's like his full name in the movie, right? Like, you know exactly my pain, B-Rad. Everyone called me that when that movie came out.
Yeah, I didn't have I didn't have the last name luxury, but I definitely rocked BRAD for a number of years.
That's so funny. Yeah, I feel like all Brads across America felt that pain for when that came out. I was in middle school when that movie came out, and I never saw it. But then everyone was like, "BRAD G, BRAD G," and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" That's so funny. Yeah, I had forgotten about that until right now.
So it's like engraved in my soul.
Yeah, you're listening to the BradCast right now. So anyway, I've been excited to have you on. I feel like we've been kind of planning it for a little while. You know, we tossed around having some other guests. Lately, I've kind of been having like 2 guests join me, but you know, today we're just going with the Brads. We're going the BradCast, and that's okay. But I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about our topic today, which is kind of a broad one, I'm not exactly sure where we'll take it by the end of this thing, but I wanted to talk about it. And at least to start, we'll kind of hit on like leaks and secrets and basically the concept in gaming of we don't really have secrets anymore. Like, it's really hard to have things not spoiled for you or find like a really cool hidden secret in a game. It's really hard for that to happen. And
right. It's interesting how things have changed.
Definitely.
But on that topic, so it's when I was younger, secrets in games, and I actually had a couple of videos on some of my first earlier videos talked about. I had one that talked about Nintendo 64 mysteries. And how, because I didn't have the internet, I didn't know what secrets there were. I mean, because nowadays you can look up everything. You can look through text dumps. You can see pretty much people have gone through every single texture. So like people were combing through files, but like back when we were younger, not everyone had the internet, and plus at that point, not everyone was going through game files looking for hidden things or
Definitely.
trying to leak things.
Yeah,
it was a different world.
It really was. I mean, I know I've talked about this before on a previous cast too. Just that it was. That's a good way to put it. Just a totally different world. People shared things more like in person. Things felt more personal in that way, where you could talk about secrets and you could talk about things you found in the game, but it was like buddies talking about it on a playground, you know? Where now, I don't know, there's something about just, hey, sharing it on the internet, or you can just look up a guide or, look up anything on YouTube about it and you'll find something. Very different realm we're in.
Yeah, it's that human dynamic to it, meeting up in person. That's actually what caused most of this is, your friends at school, you'd be sitting at lunch or you'd be, like you said, on the playground, and someone mentioned like, oh, you can unlock Toad in Smash Brothers, or you can unlock Master Hand in Smash Brothers. And then you would go home and you would attempt these challenges. And depending on where you grew up, like what region you were in, that changed things. Like the rumors would unlock different things. So like it was kind of interesting seeing how the localization of things. So to beat, say, unlock Toad or whatever, you'd have to beat, very hard difficulty without losing a life. But in my region, that was how you unlocked Master Hand. So like people had the same challenges, but they unlocked different characters, and that was kind of across all the games. That's
so funny, because I was trying to think with me in the original Smash Bros, because I know there were rumors like that, and I think for me it was unlocking Bowser. I think like that same thing. You gotta beat it without dying once. I'm very hard. Like, and I think for me the talk was Bowser. So that's so funny that it's always something different like that.
Yeah, I actually I've never heard of the Bowser one before, so that's really interesting.
Yeah. The earliest I can think of is like Mario 64, where that was definitely a lot like that too. But that was legit stuff like, did you find the metal cap yet? Like,
yeah.
Because that was something brand new, right? Metal cap was not before Mario 64, so that concept was new to me. It's like, what? What does that even mean? A metal cap, what does that do? But it made sense, because in Mario 64... you can like sink in the water to push buttons.
Right.
And so you would like go to the buttons, but you couldn't push them because you weren't heavy enough. And it's like, that makes sense. That's so cool. I bet that's a thing. And then you do find the metal cap, and it's like, that's awesome. So,
and those things are interesting because you can also finish the game without getting all 120 stars. So like you could technically get enough stars to complete the game, if I'm not mistaken, without actually getting the metal cap.
Yeah,
or
totally.
some of these other power-ups. So that made them even more of a secret.
Yep. Ugh. Different era, completely different era. The golden ages, if you will. Good time, but especially that social aspect, like that. I think that drove a lot of it. That's just like even my dad and me, like, because my dad was really into that too. So he would come up to me and be like, "You'll never guess what I heard from a friend today," and like about the metal cap and stuff. And so it's really cool. Fast forward to today though, and so I wanted to start by talking about leaks, which is a little bit different. We were touching on in the beginning about like data mining people kind of going through and finding all the secrets immediately, but leaks kind of specifically I wanted to touch just because that's very relevant today. We're seeing a lot of that about Pokemon recently. In fact, I think just a few days ago, I guess the entire game has now been leaked, which I think is
so weird.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, it's the topic is interesting because at this point, we I guess rewind a couple years and you think about leaks and where there were some legitimate ones, but like since then people have watched, people have experienced all these different leaks through all these different games, and with the amount of leaks that happened with Pokemon Sun and Moon, it's like, conspiracy theory side of it is like, did they do some of these on purpose? Because now like leaks, they make you front page of news. So like, by divulging information, whether it's intentionally from the game producer or if someone just is leaking stuff because they have access to it, it constantly keeps the topic relevant until the game comes out. So it's like I'm torn because there were so many leaks with Sun and Moon, and then on top of that, like how they were sort of like spaced out was kind of interesting to me. Like, if someone had access to the whole game, why do they wait to leak it until just now instead of before? Like
that's true. They were very spaced. And it's kind of a special case with Sun and Moon because they're already releasing all these trailers, right? So everyone's kind of already sort of upset or like trying to avoid, because I think they've released something like 15, 16 trailers about this game, and all new information, new Pokemon, new evolutions, new forms, everything. It feels to a lot of people that the game's already fully spoiled, even though it wasn't leaked. So it's kind of like a combo of Nintendo releases these trailers, and people are like, they're telling me a little too much information, and then more gets leaked. And it almost feels like a cycle where, in fact, a lot of people are speculating, they released more info because it was already leaked. So, like, they did a last trailer with something that I was especially mad about. It was like a very end game spoilery thing, and I was like, I really wish I had known that, or that I didn't know that, so I could go in blind and find that out. But people are saying, well, it was leaked, so their hand was kind of forced. A lot of people feel that way. It's just a weird situation.
Right. I heard someone say, or I read it online somewhere, that in the demo of the game, that you could just data mine and get all the names of all the Pokemon.
Yeah.
Or I forget what it was, if it was just the names of the Pokemon or if it was some other extent, like if it was stats or something else. But it's so, I don't know. It's like I think it ruins the experience. I mean, to me,
definitely.
I love the storytelling aspect of games. So if the entire story is given to me, or if things are foreshadowed in trailers, there's no surprise element. I mean, there may still be with this game, but it makes me feel like, oh, I can expect this. I can expect to encounter this person. I can expect to fight this particular thing. This is what all my Pokemon are going to look like.
Yeah.
Like when I played Pokemon Blue, I knew nothing of that. Like I had just started watching, the series on, it was like on weekdays before grade school, and it's like I didn't know all the evolutions. I didn't have a strategy guide or anything like that. So like everything was a surprise, and like I love that aspect of it. But it's like nowadays we're spoon-fed things even against our will, because it makes you wonder, why they're doing this. Why are they releasing these things? And I don't know. It's like maybe their hand was forced. Maybe then the stuff was intentional by Nintendo themselves. But like, I can't fully believe that just because they had to have been watching all these other games and how it affects other games. Like at this point, if you're not doing it, or if you have not learned that by these other games, then it's like that would be interesting too.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people say for me personally, I wish like even the final evolutions of the starters and stuff, like I'm to that point where I even wish things like that weren't spoiled. And I know that's too much because like the original Pokemon Red and Blue, like they were on the cover, you know, it's not like you can just like that's a selling point, and I get that, but like I feel like it's almost a cultural thing today too, and it's just like I want to go in as blind as possible, but it's pretty much impossible to do so, because even if I'm avoiding trailers, even if I'm avoiding looking up leaks, people are posting this stuff everywhere. Like it's as soon as it's posted, it's all over my Twitter timeline. It's all of my friends are talking about. So it's like I literally can't avoid it if I wanted to. And I think of, you know, like Pokemon YouTubers specifically. I laugh, like Alex Faciane will post like, people just think it's cool to just like tweet me spoilers because they think I would want to see them. And it's like, I don't, but just because I do Pokemon on YouTube, people think they have to show it to me. And it's like, that sucks. Like, what a bad situation to be in. It's near impossible to avoid. And the hard thing about even just bringing this up as a topic is I don't know if there's a solution, you know?
I would agree. Yeah, I don't think so. Because like, even as YouTubers, like, I just type it, you know, youtube.com. Even going to my channel, I'm still exposed to that front page where it's like, Team Skull did this, and it's like, you know, 7 question marks, and you're like, oh my gosh, and like there's like all these, you know, there might be spoilers in the thumbnails. You'll see all these different things.
Definitely.
Before you can even get to your channel to like take shelter.
They literally do. That's true. The thumbnails and the trailers, they pop up. So even if you're like avoiding Twitter, which I still think that's just impossible, like, I don't know. Yeah.
In terms of the solution, I don't know. I mean, the thing is, the only way this stuff can't happen if it's not intentional is this stuff has to be made in a vacuum, and like everyone has to be 100% trustworthy that they're not going to leak this stuff. That's like pretty much because it comes down to a person's decision, and that's really all it is. So like, I don't know, because you think about it also, if you do leak this stuff, or if you have information that you can share, you sort of are in the spotlight, even if it's like intentional, or if, like, say someone reaches out to a YouTuber and says, hey, here I have some information, blah, 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 blah. It's like you sort of get instant validation for that stuff, and people go crazy over it because they do want to know, but at the same time, maybe most people don't. So yeah, it's odd.
What's funny to me is sometimes things are airtight. Like there are some things that I'm really impressed about that don't get spoiled, like the Switch reveal. I'm really impressed that we did not have like name anything before the trailer launch. There was obviously a ton of fake leaks and there was a ton of speculation, but it's like, wow, good job, Nintendo. Like they did keep that airtight to reveal the Switch. Or I think of this latest season of The Walking Dead, like there was a big suspense. People were that someone died and we didn't know who it was, and they kept that under lockdown until the first episode of this new season. And it's like, wow, I don't know who they got working there, but they trust them because something didn't happen. And so some people are able to pull it off and some people don't, but it makes me wonder like how much of leaks are intentional, or that they purposefully maybe don't keep things as airtight lock. I don't know.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of, because I guess kind of going back a little bit. So in the indie game scene, you have these indie developers who are making stories and stuff, and they're kind of withholding information, and that generates hype. And going back to these leaks also, like these leaks in some way are like spoon feeding people to keep the excitement alive. And it's sort of, to me, it's like the AAA answer to removing details from a game in the indie scene. Like when people don't have the full story for an indie game, they go absolutely bonkers trying to figure it out. We watched that happen with the Five Nights at Freddy's series, Undertale.
Yeah.
Even I'm curious about Owlboy. Owlboy just came out and they kept the story elements hidden for so long. I'm still waiting to play through it, but it's like I wonder like what aspects of that story is untold, and will that drive people crazy?
I was actually going to bring that up later, so I'm glad you brought that up.
but in a good way. But in terms of the AAA space, the community is a bit different. But I wonder if that's their way to create hype before it happened, like before the release.
Yeah.
Because with an indie game, you might not want to do that because with Pokemon, for example, people are experienced to Pokemon. If you're releasing an indie game for the first time, like people don't have any previous experience to go off of. And I think this is sort of not foreshadowed, but like it was showcased to like the Five Nights at Freddy's series. They put out, Scott had put out several games, and each one between the games he would hint at things or give people a line of information so that they would be super alert and trying to figure out the plot of the game before the game came out, and then they can compare it to the game once the game comes out and see how that theory or their speculation lined up. And it was kind of like making a game out of it because it keeps it so relevant. Because like me, I do theories on YouTube. Of course, I'm going to try to cover that topic. So everyone's trying to race to solve the mystery, and then put it out there to the world. Because like if you're the first one to solve it, like it's a cool feeling. And it's like all that sort of acts as like a sort of like a marketing campaign, like an unplanned one. But it's like you release these clues, and then you let the internet go crazy about it and try to solve it, because they will solve it.
Yeah.
I mean, the hive mind of the internet works in mysterious ways, but it's like it goes back to the purpose, and like it makes me wonder like if the leaks are sort of the answer to what's going on in the indie scene right now.
Well, and it's a fine line. When you were saying that, it made me realize the difference of like AAAs to indies, like you're talking about. It's a fine line of what you release and what you don't, because in my mind anyway, when I think of a AAA that's a series that people know the game and so they already have expectations, I would think you wouldn't have to release very much because people already know what it is, right? So you could like give a little teaser and people get hyped just on the brand name, right? And I think some games have done that. But Pokemon, they're doing the opposite. It's let me show you everything about it to get you hyped, even though you already know Pokemon and you're invested. And Owlboy is a great example. Owlboy's brand new IP. No one has any idea what it is. Their trailer's very vague. It doesn't show a lot. It gives you just tiny snippets of what it might look like. But in my mind, I feel like, oh, new IP, you need to tell us a lot. You need to tell us more about it. But it seems like they're almost doing the opposite of that, The ones that you already know a ton about, they're giving you information overload. But then the ones that are brand new, they're just giving you a taste to try and draw you in. And it almost seems counterintuitive to me, but it seems to work, I guess. I think because indies typically put the story first, whereas the AAA titles or the bigger entities typically put the numbers first. They have to prove that like this iteration of Pokemon, even though you love Pokemon, is going to be worth buying because look at all this crazy stuff in it. But for the indie games, it's like we want you to experience the story, so we're just going to show a little bit about it, the mechanics of it. I think of like even going back to those Five Nights at Freddy's in Undertale. Like Five Nights at Freddy's, the first trailer was like, hey, you're like in a Chuck E. Cheese, and then it's like you're a security guard and you're flipping through cameras. But that's not the thing. People love that aspect of it, but they love the lore behind it even more. Like trying to figure out like, why is your guy there? Why is he working for such a low amount of money? Does this mean it takes place in a certain area? Why does he keep coming back every night? I think you're right. The secrets are kind of what I think that's what kept that series going. Not the mechanics, not the scares. Like the hidden stuff is what keeps people thirsty for it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the scares in some ways through the eyes of your favorite YouTuber getting scared. People love to see that stuff.
That's true.
I also think of Undertale. When Undertale came out, like their trailer was pretty much like, oh, you don't have to fight monsters if you don't want to. Like it was very. I mean,
and that's it.
The premise of it was pretty simple, and it just had a couple corny jokes and walking through walls, and then that was it. They left the story completely up to you to experience, so they didn't spoon feed it to you. Yep.
I'm really glad you brought up Owlboy, because I did actually want to talk about that a lot. Going back to in the beginning when we were just talking about things were a different era, discovering things for yourself in games. I was very pleasantly surprised to find when I was playing Owlboy that I kind of had that feeling again. And obviously it was because I played it like day one. So I got it. It's brand new. There's nothing online about it yet because no one's played it yet. And so I got to experience this game that no one is talking about yet, that there's no guide, there's no, 100% completion, anything. And it was like I got to jump back 10 years, 15 years to a world where you just experience a game and that's it. And it was like really awesome. I got to just experience a game and that's it. And I did 100% complete it after a while. I finished the main story and I was like, this is a great game. I want to beat it more. There's like collectibles and stuff. And so at that point, actually, I did kind of look online to see if there were things guides of like to get everything, but there wasn't yet. So I had to do a combination of two things. One, just play through more myself and find things and discover them on my own. And two, I actually went to like forums. So like Reddit.com, like r/Owlboy, or even Steam forums of the game. And the coolest part was this community came together again. It was like we were just talking in the beginning of friend groups on the playground talking about a game. That was happening again. There's nothing official out about it. It's just people coming and they're like, hey, I'm missing stuff in this area. Has anyone found it? And they're like, oh yeah, I found it. Here it is. And it was honestly like a joy. It was really cool it felt like I was a kid again, discovering a game for the first time. And I hadn't really experienced that in a long time. So
it's funny bringing that up because I think my favorite experience with that has been with Hyper Light Drifter.
Yeah.
So Hyper Light Drifter came out, and you're going through the game, and there's no story that you were told.
Oh,
like,
totally.
You see images. You're there to experience the world and figure it out for yourself. The communities for Hyper Light Drifter. It was crazy. It was just the way they put things together and the way everyone bonded together to decode things. Because when you're going through the game, you find these different stone slabs that have this unknown language on them. It's like, why? What does all this mean? And you have to collect all the stone slabs, but you don't know where they're all at. And then on top of that, you don't have any reference to how to decode the language that's on them. So like we're trying to work together to do that. And then there was the aspect of, why is your character, the only person who has blue skin? Like, what's up with these, these blue skin people of, this world? Then also the timeline of this world. Why are certain characters paralleled to tarot cards? Like the Steam cards sort of match up with tarot cards, and and some of the imagery in the opening cutscene, the tower and all these things that kind of go back to these, this deck of cards that you would shuffle to sort of predict your future or kind of give you some information on your life currently. Like, why are those why do they have importance in this world?
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about Owlboy for that reason, because, my time with Hyper Light Drifter, although I got beat down continuously, it was awesome. I loved it. And then seeing Owlboy and just sort of the feeling I got from the trailer and the characteristics of the main character, definitely are really interesting to me. So I've been really excited to dive in, as I have not been able to do so yet.
Yeah, my elevator pitch for Owlboy, the trailer gives you almost nothing compared to what you get when you play it, both mechanically and story-wise. It's an incredible story, and I know you being huge on lore and all that stuff, there's a ton of hidden lore, a lot of finding backstories on characters. There is a ton of that. I think this game has huge potential to be that next game like that. The next, what about this character? Let's find out more about him.
Right.
It really does have big potential for that. So I'm excited for that as well. The game does a good job of, there's a lot of hidden secrets, like little collectibles, little things, and your reward for finding those are story elements. So there's things that elaborate much more on the main story. There's a secret you can get that tells you purely about one character that seems totally unimportant, but then he becomes much more relevant, and whoa, that's cool, I didn't know that about him. Like, your reward for finding secrets in this game are not just collectibles. You're rewarded with deeper lore and story, and that's awesome. So You need to play it.
I know. No, I mean, like, I already have my notebook out because it's when I went through Undertale, I did the same thing. It was like I knew going into it, it was gonna be a grand story that wasn't sort of told completely. So I took notes of different things, and that's actually how I got my 8 topics for my videos. Where like this is strange. Like I took notes of all of it.
Yeah,
and I want to do the same thing for Owlboys because even watching the trailer, I just get that same feeling. I get the same. And I've been watching it too. Like you can kind of gauge the virality of a game based on the number of Steam reviews. And I've been watching how it's been growing, and I'm just waiting for the explosion point for Owlboy.
Yep.
Because it will happen. I mean, I'm just kind of curious and trying to figure out when that actually is going to
It has so much potential, and I think the reason is similar to Undertale. So Undertale, extremely story-focused, right? But it wasn't quite a walking simulator. The battle mechanics and the bullet dodging made it both enjoyable to play and hugely story-driven. Owlboy's the same way. Huge focus on story. It's beautiful pixel art, but mechanically, it does things I've never seen games do before. It's got huge depth mechanically, and so I think it has that perfect recipe where it's deep and extremely fun to play at the same time. So
as you're talking, I'm like looking at the Steam page, like going through the screenshots again. Yeah, I know. I'm really excited. I'm really excited for it.
Yep, it does. I can already see SwankyBox theories on Owlboy. It needs to happen. But anyway, so what does this have anything to do with leaks and spoilers and no secrets anymore? We were talking about this kind of before the cast, just when we were talking before. Selective storytelling, right? Like you did a whole video on this of just games purposefully leaving things out for the audience to figure out on its own. I'll let you kind of make the connection for me. Maybe I'm putting you on the spot, but what does that have to do with leaks and no secrets anymore?
I think it's the same thing. It's like it's another element that you can use to extend the life of your game. I mean, today I still talk about mysteries and Mario and stuff that happened like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, if you're writing a story, you tell someone the complete story, and they get to the end, they're like, "Oh, that was good," and then you put that book down, you finish that game, and you don't think about it anymore. But like, if you cut out parts of that story that may not be, maybe they are really important things, or maybe they're not important things, you constantly leave it up to interpretation. Like they have the baseline story of like what happens from A to Z, but character motives or intentions and all these things can change by removing certain key things in the story. And by doing so, you're going to keep people talking about the game for years to come. I mean, people are still talking about the mysteries of Undertale and whether, like, Sans the skeleton, like why is he so interesting? Why does he do these things?
Yeah.
And by doing that, I think it's just like if I made a game, hint, maybe I will be doing one, but there's it would play a large role in that. Like, I want people to solve it. Because like another part of it is you're giving them the power to be the first person to solve that mystery or to piece it together, and like that's kind of cool. It's like almost like a challenge for your audience. And it's just a cool concept because I think some of this, I think of like Five Nights at Freddy's. I mean, what if the story was literal for what it was? Would people be that interested in it? Or is it the murder mystery aspect of it that they don't know, that everything's changing and what's released in the new games debunks the old games, your old theories that's what's keeping it alive? In a good way, because people love talking about that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, by doing that, by selectively removing things, the game overall. I mean, this happens in AAA titles too. Like, and it may not be directly tied to the story, but like I think of like Grand Theft Auto, Grand Theft Auto 5. A lot of people play that game, but there's mysteries within that game. There's like UFOs on Mount Chiliad. There's this dam that people think they can blow up. For a while, people tried to hunt for Bigfoot. You have this big, open, vast world, and you throw these mysteries into it.
Did you ever watch the show on Game Trailers Pop Fiction?
I don't believe so.
So game trailers, way back in the day, they were kind of like before YouTube even, a huge game website.
Oh, yeah, because they have their what do they become? Easy Allies?
I was going to say that they just, at least in the last year, ended. I don't know if they've changed to become something else. But Pop Fiction was a show that was, honestly, like, you would love it. It's a lot of what you do. Secrets in games. It's debunking theories, hearing things and trying, almost like a Mythbusters of games. Mm-hmm. And they were the first, at least that I'd seen, where they uncovered that you could play as Master Hand in Smash Melee. Right. They were a lot of things. You mentioned like GTA. They talked about like Bigfoot in GTA and all those ones where sometimes they're true and sometimes they're not, but they take myths about games and try to debunk them or prove them true. And I was just thinking about that when you were saying that.
Yeah, I don't think I watched any of their stuff on game trailers, but I don't know, I'm not sure, but like I think they're called Easy Allies now. It's been a while since I watched their stuff, but I think they actually brought back that, and they did like a video on the Running Man from Ocarina of Time, and being able to beat him.
Oh yeah,
there's a guy who challenges you to a race that you could never beat because he always beats you by like a second or something. I think they actually did that, so I think they actually may have revived that series. But I kind of going back to that topic, I think game worlds are no different than our own. Like if there's in real life, people are drawn to mystery or the uncertainty, or even if the paranormal, if you believe that stuff. Like there's so many mystery things that people will even look into, even if it's sort of scary. And like the game worlds are the same thing. Whereas like it's sort of just an extension of our world. You get to leave your own world for a bit, hop into someone else's, and then pursue those mysteries. And in that world, you might have more tools and resources to actually figure it out than you would in our own world. Like maybe you can't actually go to that place in real life that you maybe be interested in, but games offer you that opportunity. So it's kind of like you can take on that adventure or that mystery quest as a character in that world versus not being able to do it at all on your own.
And the good games embrace that stuff. Like, a real basic game is just going to give you the game and that's it. But the good ones that embrace it and they leave little hints or little secrets. One that comes to mind from my childhood was Banjo-Kazooie, and just like all the secret eggs in the ice key, specifically the ice key.
Gosh.
Because like that one's right in your face, right? So Freeze Easy Peak, there's an ice wall you can't pass, but you see an ice key spinning around and it's just out of reach. But you're like, that clearly is something that I need to get, but you can't ever reach it unless you put in a secret code. And it's like, Rare was so ahead of its time. Wow, like just amazing, dangling a little cherry in front of you that you can't reach.
I know. It's like the ice key. Same for me. Like when I that was something that taunted me as a kid.
Yeah.
Because, I did a video, that Nintendo 64 mysteries video. So the thing with all the other mysteries, they were typically like, oh, this door you can't open, or
right,
like the island and off the coast and or across the lake in GoldenEye, or places that weren't actually tangible, or like even the ghoul medal from Super Mario 64, where there's like a sign that says, if you make it out, if you're alive, you deserve a ghoul medal, which is actually just a pun on gold medal, which is probably just referring to the star. But the ice key was like the only thing that was actually tangible, that you could be like, tangible in the fact that you could see it beyond this wall.
Yep.
So you actually got to see the prize instead of just hearing about the prize. And Banjo-Kazooie had tons of that. It had all the, like you said, those eggs and like the ice key and
stop and swap, just in general.
Oh yeah, just the idea behind it. And it was great because of that. I loved trying to figure that stuff out. But and even beyond that stuff, like when I go to these levels in games, I sometimes even look for things that aren't associated with a particular item. Like I just did a video on Mad Monster Mansion. Monster Mansion is such a cool level because I think about, why is all this stuff here? Why is Gruntilda's pictures, her portraits and stuff are all over this mansion. Is this like a getaway home? But also, why is the inside of the mansion so huge compared to the outside? Now that's a common trope for Banjo-Kazooie. You go into a building, it's humongous on the inside, and it's super small on the outside.
Yep.
But it's like, why does the mansion have no doors? Like none of the rooms in the mansion have doors. So like you can only get through them through the window. And it's like, was this mansion particularly built for ghosts? And it's cool because even though you're not being taunted with an object, I still get sucked into the lore about that area and how it fits in with the rest of the game. And on top of it,
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going on another tangent about how Banjo-Kazooie's world and where it fits in with Donkey Kong's world.
That's true, yeah.
That's another thing.
And some of it, I think, is us doing it to ourselves, right? Where it's not intended by the developer and we're just kind of wondering ourselves. But some of it is obviously very intentional. That ice key is just like, that's very intentional taunting. I want to step back a little bit when you were saying about indie games are really focusing on the stories and building up these lores, and you see it especially in indies. I was thinking about that when you said that because, like, lately I went through and played Firewatch, which is obviously extremely story-driven, so it's going to have all that backstory, the lore stuff you want to discover, but it's almost, kind of that borderline walking sim where it's like that's the only focus. But I'm noticing with other indies that are purely, like, mechanic-focused, for example, Enter the Gungeon is like... roguelite, and it's just very heavy mechanical roguelite, meaning it's all about the guns, it's all about fun and fast gameplay. Like, that's the focus of that game. But even that one has deep backstory and lore and secrets galore and things that you discover. Like, that game is chocked full of secrets, and it's cool to see that story, like, and building on that story and building lore is important, not only in story-based games, obviously, but even these ones that are just trying to be very gamey, just fun to play. Even they are making sure that they have this extra stuff to keep people coming back. And I think that's important, like you were saying, for longevity of a game.
Yeah, I think, like, you can always go back and play a game for fun. Like, that's never, and that's separate from this. But, like, because I think also, like, Binding of Isaac.
Yeah.
Tons of deep lore in that game, but that's sort of fast paced and, like, is roguelike as well.
And they even did, when they released, like, Afterbirth and stuff, they had the ARG. So, like, there was a lot of real life, and that stuff's awesome. Just like the real life puzzle hunting, and that's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's. I'm curious to see where that takes us in the future. Like, how many more things will incorporate that besides just the lore in the game, like actually tying it to the lore of something in real life as well.
Yeah,
that'd be kind of cool.
Man, it's good stuff.
There's so much. The thing is, like, storytelling in games, there's so many different avenues of it that can even tie into these, like those leaks. Like, even the leaks, they're sort of a way of spoon-feeding. They are spoon-feeding the story to someone, like making sure they understand these aspects of the story before diving in.
Yeah.
Because maybe they're not explained all the way, or maybe it's a benefit to knowing that before you pick up the game. But all of it, all of these things affect the story in one way or another.
Yeah, it's such a good topic, and I love diving into this stuff. Any kind of, like, final thoughts about this before we close out? The connection of leaks and the silent story working together, and why that's important.
I think overall it's important to me as a person, because one, I love that stuff, but two, it goes back to, like I said earlier in the podcast. It's sort of the next form of what we did as kids. Like, we would create these mysteries ourselves, and there was rumors that we were trying to solve by, with the removing elements of the story or things like that. We're causing the online world to bond together into groups to try to solve this stuff. And it's the modern day form of what we did as kids.
Yeah,
and I like that. I like that a lot, because
that's true.
It does create that same sort of feeling that I had as a child, even though it's been, a couple 2 decades since then, or however long it's been.
Yeah.
Like it's really cool. It's a very, even though these games are new, they still bring out about a sense of nostalgia because I'm remembering how it was. So that's why I think all these things are super important. And I think that's why they resonate with people, because they can resonate with any generation. Even if it's your first time with the game. Like to me, I think of the older games, but if you're born in the 2000s and you're younger still, you can still contribute. You can still be a part of that. And this is just going to be your version of that game 10 years from now.
Yeah. And I think just talking about it, I'm realizing, we kind of we talked about leaks in a bad light and all that sucks that people do that. But like, it's almost just like from a human nature standpoint, like it's like we were saying that we crave to find these mysteries. Like I think it comes from a place where it's just human nature. Like that's the kind of thing we want to do, is discover these secrets to reveal and talk about them with friends. Like it's almost unavoidable because it's just part of like the human experience. That's what we want to do.
No, I definitely fully agree with that. I think it's we're always going to be curious, and as long as it's something to satisfy that curiosity or something to go after, we are always going to keep pursuing those.
Yeah. So in conclusion, indie devs continue to make mysteries in your games. Also AAA devs, obviously. But leave us hanging. Like that's okay. You don't have to answer every question that we have about your game, because then we'll speculate and figure them out on our own, or pull an Undertale and like hide something in the code, and then we'll they'll find that too. So,
right. I would say the only flip side to this is don't take people on a wild goose chase where they can't get some sort of answer, because I feel like, when I gave this talk at a game design convention, it was about selective storytelling, like 2 weeks ago, someone brought up the series Lost and how like there are so many mystery, there's unanswered questions in Lost, but they dragged it on for like 7 or 8 series or seasons.
Yeah.
To the point where people were just sick of it. And then someone also brought up Halo 5 and how they tried to generate hype by teasing at things in the trailers, but ultimately it just kind of flopped. And that's a matter of opinion, but a lot of people generally feel that the hype that was raised for the game wasn't delivered on in the game. So while most of the time I think selective storytelling or this kind of concept can be beneficial, there are instances where it actually can kind of bite you in the butt if you take advantage of it or you exploit people of it. So
well, it's like I was saying, it is that fine line. Like if you can be as vague as you want or as detailed as you want, but if you're leaning too far one way or the other, like you said, it can come back to get you. Because I don't have the answer. I don't know what's the correct amount. Like I was saying, Pokemon and Owlboy seem to be backward from what I thought. So what do I know? But yeah, it's you gotta be careful, and it is a fine line. And what do people even want? I don't know.
That's it. The ultimate question.
What do people want? Hey, thanks for being on, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was a pleasure.
Great cast, great conversation. Thank you, audience, for listening. Hey, check out SwankyBox if you're into this stuff. Like if you're definitely into the finding the lore, finding the secrets, the mysteries. Hey, that's the channel for you, man. Definitely. Go check them out. But thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you guys on the next cast. Any words before we part, my friend?
No, it was just a pleasure being here. Like I've listened to a lot of your casts in the past, and definitely vouched, because I remember you had asked on Twitter like if you were going to continue doing these or if you're going to kind of evolve.
Yeah,
I'm glad you're sticking with it, because I feel like podcasts, they aren't for everyone, but I feel like the people that do watch them really appreciate them, and it's a cool outlet just for us to sit down and have a conversation on a specific topic, and it's really cool. So I want to thank you so much for, again, and I'm saying it over and over, thank you so much for allowing me to be on this with you and kind of talk shop about mysteries and leaks and all things internet.
I always feel like I say it on these casts, but I really enjoy doing them. They are just like a fun outlet for me to do. And hey, us B-Rads got to stick together. So
B-Rads for life.
All right. Hey, if you're a B-Rad, tell me in the comments below. We'll find other B-Rads. We'll make like a B-Rad colony.
The B-Rad Army.
B-Rad Army unite. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.